The first item on the agenda is any other business. So we were to welcome. If you haven't been to a Wish meeting before, you're all very welcome. This is the first time we've tried this technology, so all I can say is good luck. Let's see what happens. It's brilliant. Thank you very much, Pete, and to Atlas World for organising it for us.
No problem.
You will see, I know there's been a set of questions emailed in by Anne Coyle from Recon, and hopefully Rachel has those stashed somewhere, and we'll maybe see them later on the screen. Is there anything else anybody wants to discuss?
No.
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 Right, I've got a few no's there, so we'll just carry on. That's brilliant. I don't know if Martin Rafferty has been able to join in with us. Martin,
Yes, I'm here, Jim.
Yeah, he's there.
Very good. Oh, there you are, indeed. Yes. I see your hairstyle is the same as mine, boy.
Yep, exactly. Pulling it out.
Pulling it out to the roots.
That's it.
Our first item on the agenda is just an update on the Northern Ireland government position. And really, we are still in a position of lockdown here in Northern Ireland as of, I think, about 12:30 this afternoon.
Folks, I'm going to have to leave. There's nothing happening on my audio. It's breaking up and can't hear anybody.
Right, Darren, all the best. You see the problem with having to pull the string a wee bit tighter in between these bits of the tin cans. Are you still there? Right. We are still going to be stuck here with lockdown. Can you still hear this?
Yeah.
Yeah, still here, Jim.
Yeah.
We will still be in this position for the foreseeable future. Regardless of what happens in England, possibly there seems to be a bit of a disagreement one way or another. So the next item on the agenda is the planning basis for future advice. So my thought is we are looking at maintaining where we are now for at least 2 or 3 months.
Jim, can I maybe come in there if you don't mind?
Right, go ahead, Gordon.
I don't know if you know or not, but the Environmental Minister met a group of waste companies last Thursday and give them an update on the situation within what is going on within Northern Ireland. Now, from what I can gather, that meeting was very successful, and the Minister has gone back to look at some ideas within the waste management side. I don't know if you've heard anything about that or not, Martin.
No.
But there was a lot of things come up, reference planning and various things you got there where people are trying to get their planning changed and various things you got there, problems with storage of waste and different things. So that has become a big thing. Now, what we've actually heard is that most of the waste companies in Northern Ireland, maybe somebody in this group might be able to tell us, but landfill has actually soared over the last 2-3 months within Northern Ireland. There's actually one council is actually talking about opening a site again to actually take their waste in. So it's a very worrying time within the Northern Ireland government position time. So I think we need to be very careful about just what way we move forward with waste companies and various things like that, and how that's going to affect Northern Ireland maybe in the future.
Right. Has anybody heard any more about that?
No.
No, we've heard nothing here.
No, nothing here either.
No.
Okay, I'm just giving you an update. I'm dealing with the companies who were actually there at the meeting and actually spoke with the minister. And a lot of companies are now concerned about the health and safety within the section. So again, Martin, that's going to be a big thing probably from the health and safety executive side, where some of the companies are now talking about bringing in COVID-19 officers to actually do work there and not put more pressure on their health and safety officers when the social distancing thing is going to be a lot more detailed, I think. is probably the right way to do it. It's going to cause some waste companies a lot of difficulties. Some waste companies have now changed to 12-hour shifts and are looking at actually maybe going longer shifts to actually see if they can keep the processes going.
Right, okay.
Would it be fair to say, guys, that the furlough scheme may have an impact on this too? Because I think once if the furlough scheme, there's talk the furlough scheme is going to get reduced down to 60% in July, and I think that's going to put pressure on people actually getting back to work. So, would it be fair to say that that could be a factor too that needs to be considered?
Yes, Michael, I think it probably will. But the interesting point that Gordon just mentioned there is that a number of firms have already introduced COVID officers.
Yeah.
In attempts to try and police the existing safeguards that are in place. Because one of the enemies that we will have is complacency.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know, David Donnelly there? No.
He was there, you know.
He was. He's escaped.
Michael, is there anything, any documentation that came out of the meeting with the minister?
Not as far as I know. From what I can gather, there is documentation coming out with that meeting.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to get hold of it at the minute, and once I do, I'll gladly push it on to people
Yeah.
if they send me their email address. I think it's very important that that he was very praiseful of the minister was very praised of the actual meeting itself and the waste industry as such. But he was concerned about the whole fact of waste companies who had maybe pre-mixing waste and various things like that, their high social distancing would come in on that, and what way that would affect the companies that they're actually working with. So as I say, some companies have changed their system from going to 8 hours to 12-hour shifts. Now again, that affects their planning, it affects their waste management license, it affects the way they work from a health and safety point of view. So I think it's something that we sort of need to keep a very close eye on. And the same thing in Northern Ireland is we've one council who only has civic community sites open at the minute. It looks like today that we may get the civic community sites back open again in the next 2 or 3 weeks. So again, that's going to put more pressure on councils to produce proper risk assessments and various things that got there for this, because it's a whole new way of working out there, a whole new way of working.
Hi, Gordon, could I just come in there and say, yeah, we have a plan in place in Belfast for our sites to reopen imminently. We're just really there's actually a meeting this afternoon of our party leaders, just to discuss that. We have the operational plan ready, and we are closely watching. Lisburn was open, I think, from Monday. Nabby was open, and obviously Mid and East Antrim was the first to open. So we're looking and seeing what's happening there. In terms of, you were talking about position statements and that, there was the one that was produced for councils, and that was the regulatory policy statement on the reopening of HRCs. So it might be worth, even, I know it's different sort of setup, but for the waste contractors, it might even be worth having a wee look at that guidance to see what could be coming, if there are follow-up position statements for industry. But we have had to take on board what you're saying about the shift working as well, because over and above what you include in a shift, there's that whole cleaning operations in the morning, and the added cleaning and the social distancing, staff coming in and out. We're actually doing a bit of a dummy run at the moment. So, things like staff in and out of the canteen, the kitchen, the toilets, the one-way system, it has such a knock-on effect. The whole staff welfare and cleansing operations, as well as your, we'll be operating in the first instance limited capacity. So it'll be general waste, green waste, cardboard, and then phasing in everything. But even the social distancing on sites between staff, never mind all the public coming in, it's having a huge knock-on effect.
Yeah, as I say, Jennifer, I honestly think between private and local authority, you know, there's a whole new way of working here. You know, Andrew was supposed to join this meeting out of Plasware. Andrew decided to go 12-hour shifts somewhere near enough 6-8 weeks ago, and it's really worked for him. And basically in the day, not that he had a big staff members anyway, but basically in the day, he's done it and he's controlled it that way. Like, it's just like us all, even going to do a shop now, and a shop is going to be completely different. So waste companies are going to operate the same sort of basis. And I do feel a pity for the bigger companies, like the Regens and the River Ridges and all them sort of thing. Like McQuillan's, how do you keep social distancing between a pre-sorting belt and various things like that? There? Very, very difficult times ahead.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, there's David now in the corner.
Yeah, well, I mean, so far our measures seem to be working. You know, luckily enough, we've had no cases yet. We have perspex screens between the pickers on the lines, and we've marked out social distancing in the yard. We actually got the social distancing guidelines marked more permanently, but it seems to be a constant enforcement of it and a constant, you know, relaying of information to the staff. You know, signage, memorandums, and everything else to kind of keep them on it. You might get them on it for 2 weeks, you know, adhering to the social distancing, but you turn your back for a day and it goes back to the way it used to be. So you really have to constantly enforce this. You know, it is a real challenge to everybody. But we did introduce a COVID-19 enforcement officer to help take the pressure off me, as I've been doing a lot of these things myself.
Yeah, David, I think everybody's thinking about that now. Even smaller companies that I'm talking about are actually talking about specifically having a COVID-19 officer that will sort of daily watch the cleanliness to the side, the moving around, and how people meet up, eating in canteens and various things you got there. You know, people are swapping their canteen areas for sort of like 2 people at a time, and then they're actually getting in and cleaning for another 2 people. You know, like this is going to be a big cost and whatever, and a big issue as far as health and safety is concerned within our whole industry.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, we actually took all the chairs out of the canteens and marked out social distancing in the canteens as well. The smoking hut, we moved all the smokers outside the main gate, and we started using the smoking area as an ad hoc canteen.
Yeah.
To try and make sure that the staff still have areas to go to get their lunch. You know, we try a measure for maybe a week or 2 and see what works. Maybe have to make a change again. You know, we're kind of really learning on our feet with this.
Sorry to interrupt. See, your COVID-19 enforcement officers, are they just, that is something an employee you already had and you just made them this role, or is that have you created a role for that?
We had a couple of furloughed staff, and we brought them back in, you know, for that COVID enforcement officer. So I created a job description for them, and I created like an eye auditor template, you know, checks to do at the bus stops, and, you know, making sure they're going to the lines and coming back from the lines, adhering to social distancing. He was also checking the canteens and the smoking areas, etc. And because there was a template created for him and a job description, it wasn't too difficult to train the person up to do it. It's just, I've started to see there is training courses now for COVID enforcement officers. I was sent the details of one there. It was more aimed at the construction industry, but there is now training being designed and delivered for these COVID officers.
Actually, David, on that, the Construction Industry Federation down south, I think you can actually log on their website if you're a member and do that course for free.
Oh, really? Brilliant.
Yeah. So, because they obviously, the CIF in the Republic have introduced or recommended to all their members that all sites return, and all construction sites return to work, and all contractors on each site needs to have their own dedicated COVID-19 compliance officer. And again, it's doing similar work to what you're doing in Regen, maintaining distancing, hygiene standards, and so on. So yeah, there are a number of courses, there are a number of training courses out there as well.
I'll have a wee look at that one, Michael. Did you do it yourself, did you?
I didn't actually, but I looked into, there's another training company in the Republic that introduced their own Zoom course. So I sat in on that for one day. It was a 4-hour course, and again, it was similar guidelines, following similar guidelines. The only difference that I think was that downside, one of the stipulations was that all the RAMs had to be updated, and so they were kind of thinking, right, okay, can we use an existing member of staff for this? But then they needed some kind of an understanding of health and safety to be able to work through all the RAMs and update all the RAMs. So some companies have had their safety teams who were already furloughed, or they were working from home, and they were getting ahead of the game by going through all the RAMs and getting them up to date. So, but then some of the smaller contractors were going, right, okay, we're going to have to bring in an extra resource here to help us out. We don't have the internal capacity.
That's a fair point. There has been many long hours worked trying to get the document in place for this.
Sure there has.
Sure, for everybody across the board here, I'm sure.
Yeah, I'm getting that asked all the time now, David, from my companies. And I deal with a lot of small companies like Blue Skip Hire and various things they got there. They're finding it very, very hard to actually get their head around all this. And they're the ones that need the training. It's the smaller companies, the bigger companies like yourselves who, you're lucky you've got yourself there and you were able to write the job description. They can't, and they're in that situation where they're not knowing just exactly what to do. So the online training courses, Michael, would be good to know about. If you could send me some information then, I wouldn't mind having a wee look at that. I'll pass it on to them or whatever.
Yeah, I'll send it through. Through. I'm actually looking at the moment. We had some inquiries where we were at companies, as you say, smaller businesses like you say, Gordon, who were looking at additional resource. And what we done was we joined forces with the training company, and then we trained particular safety officers on the compliance and on the guidance of what they needed, and then we're able to supply them on a temporary basis. So that seems to be an option as well that's working for us.
Very good. Good.
Also on the HSENI website, guys, there is a template risk assessment.
Brilliant.
Is it still there?
Oh yeah, it's still there.
Yeah, that's good. So there is a bit of help available anyway. Just when we're looking at the agenda there for a second, we did publish 3 documents on the HSENI website. As the world moves on, those documents are now slightly dated. And they cover the basics. They cover what happens if somebody gets an illness, and basically in this case COVID-19, and it has some good practice pictures and things on them, kindly supplied by some members of the industry. So do have a look at those if you haven't already seen them. There is a lot of practical stuff on there. And it is, as I call it, COVID bite size. This is a smaller version than some of the material which has been produced across the water. It runs to pages and pages. But we will be updating that guidance in the next few days here to take account of the changes and anything that we may learn this afternoon. But do take the chance to have a look at it. Any comments?
Nope.
Can I just say, Jim, just on the issue of PPE for staff, one of the biggest issues for us at the moment in the council is the use of face masks. Obviously, we're all using the gloves, but it's whether you provide the PPE staff, the health agency and health and safety executive advice is it's really towards the healthcare industry. And in waste, it's should you be providing them for reassurance? Our staff feel a sense of reassurance if they're wearing the masks.
Yeah.
But the advice that we seem to be getting, you know, from all sources is that it's not required unless you can't socially distance at that 2 meter. So fair enough if you're in a, like in the council, for example, the cemeteries where you have to bury, you know, coffins and that, and you have no way out of the 2 meter distance. It just seems to be, you do not, they could cause more harm than good, because if staff sort of put a reliance on them, they might become lax in other areas and put themselves at risk in terms of the, you know, the hand, the mouth and face and touch and all that, the transmission of it. But it is something that's caused a bit of concern, I suppose, with our staff, that they feel that physical barrier almost provides a reminder of making sure you're putting in place the other social measures. I was just wondering what everybody else was doing with regards to the face masks, if they were supplying them and if staff were wearing them, or obviously if they're needed in your risk assessment for asbestos or anything like that, fair enough, but just as a COVID-19 measure.
Wendy, we're supplying the refuse collectors with the face masks, but again, we're supplying them for reassurance. To reassure. There's some that won't go out without them. Some don't wear them, but they're there. The supply's there for reassurance. But depending on, we have other masks for the office workers, for the office that are here. I don't know if you can see the camera there.
Yeah.
Can you see?
Yeah, just. Yeah. Sort of.
Yeah, this, you know, we're thinking of supplying for the refuse collectors as well, because we've got the driver and a loader in the lorry, and then another loader following behind, which is causing, you know, a bit of stress and inconvenience as well, because we're not allowed to have the 3 in the lorry.
Sorry, can I also ask in that as well, from the point of view of, I have noticed that our refuse collectors are now back to task and finish again. Lorries finishing at 12 o'clock, 12:30 in the day and various things like that. How does people in councils feel about that? Well, even the private side of things, you know, where men are going out and emptying. Like the lorry that I was with today had 4 people actually working on the vehicle, which is quite strange.
It is quite strange, you know. We would have the 3. There's 2 in the vehicle with the perspex down the middle, and then 1 driving a van behind and following behind. The majority of our work at the moment is start to finish, but it can be quite difficult with the weights, the tonnage, and the excess waste that's been put out there.
Yeah, we're the same, Gordon, in Belfast. We have the perspex screens in cab, and then the follow on. So if you that was a physical measure obviously we put in place, and then again taking on board the advice from the HSE was that the follow up vehicle with if they're the 3rd member.
Yeah, and the same with us in Riveridge. We've just got the perspex screens as well, very similar.
I think the task and finish element comes into it, Gordon, in that we're not encouraging staff to come in and sign in and gather around a clocking area in the morning, and similarly in the afternoon. And the runs have got shorter in some cases, and that's certainly I know in Causeway here we're maybe using 2 lorries in 1 run, and putting as Jennifer says, perspex screen at the middle, and just having a driver and 1 operative in each lorry. So there's an element of task and finish, but we've made it clear to the guys that it's not permanent. It's only for as long as this crisis lasts.
Okay, I'm more worried about the fact of the safety side of things and how that would come in. As you know, many years ago when I was involved, it was task and finish, get the job done and get it away, you know, but at the end of the day, if that's reoccurring at the minute, then basically in the day we need to be very careful about just how we get back to normal at the very end of that, especially from a health and safety point of view.
Absolutely.
Well, it won't be until the social distancing has actually been removed from the 2 meters. I know that there are some refuse collectors in England. There is still 3 in the lorry. But here in Northern Ireland, it's different. We have just the 2 in the lorry and 1 falling behind in the van. And we've been told that the 3rd person cannot go into the lorry, cannot, and the 2nd loader cannot sit in the van when they go into the tip or when they're having breaks. They all have to still stay separately, and that's what they're doing at the moment. But it's very difficult. You know, the task and finish, the hours are extended quite a lot, and with everyone, you know, cutting their grass, and the tonnages have just gone up and up and up.
Two questions on that. One is when we're looking at extending working hours, are we in danger of infringing some other piece of working time legislation?
Oh, you mean the working time directive?
Yeah, or the working time regulations as they are, yeah.
No, I don't think we are at the moment.
Most of my companies are looking at continental shifts, Jim, where what they'll do is they'll have half their crew in at the start of the week and then half the crew at the tail end of the week. So basically in the day there'll be an interchange halfway through the week where they'll actually still able to work and keep the social distancing. So I think that's the main thing. Now some companies have furloughed people, and then what they've done is they've brought staff in to keep the process going. So basically in the day they're operating two systems as such to actually make sure that they can do that and operate that.
Yeah, well, that sort of covers some of the practical things. Is there anything else about social distancing? What I'm thinking about is discipline here. Peter Kerr mentioned there about you know, guys not congregating at the start or the end of the shift. But what about getting people out onto the site?
Well, getting onto the sites, none of the loaders are allowed onto the sites. It's only that the loaders are dropped off, and then it's only the driver that goes in.
Yeah, but I'm thinking as well here about the actual recycling or separating sites that are still operating, and we have people coming from the getting in, getting their PPE on, moving out. It's getting that discipline of one-way systems and people not mingling and not actually breaching the 2 meter rule, if you like.
Well, the majority of the recycling centres have the lines drawn on the one way in, one way out. So at the moment, everyone, from what I've seen, everyone seems to be adhering to it.
Yep, well, that's hopeful.
The Antrim and Newton Abbey Borough Council, what they do is they book their slots. This is the residents now, they book their slot, and then they go and park in the Valley Leisure Centre, and then they're driven round to the likes of the O'Neill Road. They're physically taken round to do their tipping. In relation to the commercial, I'll check with Albert, and I'm sure it would be working exactly the same way, that there would be the driver going in and following the one-way circuit.
That's fine. I'm just going back to Jennifer Stevens' point about the use of masks and things like that. I think it was a point that somebody else was making too, that the masks provide reassurance. But the latest guidance from England this morning basically says, oh, masks are really only for the health sector. And I can understand where they're coming from, that they're very keen to make sure that all the PPE which is available and appropriate goes into the NHS at the present time. But the reassurance factor is a big one. I don't know, Martin, are you still there?
Yeah, still here, Jim.
Have you any thoughts on the effectiveness of PPE?
To be honest with you, I mean, it's not something that we're endorsing. It does depend on the individual risk assessment of the company. However, if you are deciding that it is something that you want your staff to wear, yes, it can give them a sense of security, and it's for some that they feel is protecting their health. But just be mindful that there needs to be a process for actually removing the mask, which may have become contaminated during the process of wearing it. How are they taking the mask off? How are they doing it with gloves on? Are the gloves contaminated? How are they being disposed of? So it's more than just simply providing staff with masks. There is another process on behind it. It's not something, like I say, that we are endorsing, and we're saying that we should use. I say, like as Jennifer has alluded to before, it does depend, what's within the organisation's risk assessment. That's pretty much where we stand at the minute. But I say, if you are going to use them, in the staff is how to take them off properly and how to dispose of them properly.
What about the likes of the police, or even the bin lorries, that can't keep the 2 meters of social distancing, and they're wearing the face masks. Would it be possible for us to put the third person back into the lorry with these particular face masks?
Well, I mean, when you look at the control measures that the government are recommending, the primary control measure is social distancing, maintaining that minimum 2 meters. You're then looking at good hygiene methods being put into place as well, washing the hands, not touching the face, etc. And then you're looking at sort of partitions and things like that. Screens and that's going up. So when you're getting into wearing PPE, you are going right down to the bottom of the hierarchy. So you are. And we would look to see other control measures being put in place before actually going down into the PPE route.
Yeah, I totally agree.
I agree with that, Martin. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree as well.
That's okay. So we've got a bit of a consensus on that one. Also, we have seemed to have a bit of help available possibly in training COVID enforcement officers. That sounds like a job title you really don't want. But yes, it's a possibility, and Michael has got contacts there, so that's very useful. Is there anything else?
CEO, Jim.
Yep. Go ahead.
Sorry, I was just saying, surely everybody wants to be a CEO.
Yes, indeed. Well, we would like the money. We don't necessarily want the responsibility, but we like the money.
Yeah.
Not too bad.
Is there anything else on practical safety precautions?
At the minute,
yeah. Can I just raise a point about PPE?
Yes, go ahead.
It's just important to make a definition between what is PPE and what is a face covering. So PPE is what we just described there, that stuff that's actually protecting somebody from the virus. But the reassurance, you can use face coverings, and they're not actually defined as PPE, but you can bring in a face covering, which is what the government have announced today, that if you're in the shops, they would say you can use one, they would encourage you to wear one, because of the fact that there is some evidence now that maybe people who are carriers, if they wear them, there might be some evidence now that they're useful for the general public to wear in places where you can't maybe maintain social distancing, or where there's a lot of people moving randomly around where you can't really control it. So I do think face coverings that you make yourself or you give your staff that are not actually PPE and you want reassurance is something you can consider now.
Yep, that's fine. Thanks for that one.
No problem.
Are we okay?
Could I just say something there quickly?
Go ahead, Damien.
It was just that for some activities that maybe the 2 metre social distancing can't be achieved, we have introduced in other parts of the business that the masks and shields, face shield, would have to be worn for those duties, and unfortunately, it may be a case in some of our operations that could be for reasonably long periods of time, but there's no way around that. And talk about comfort and discomfort for the wearer, but if it is breaching the 2 metre rule, that there's no other way of sort of achieving that in some instances. So that's what has to be done.
That's it. Yep, we just have to take it as it comes. I did see one interesting thing on the TV yesterday morning, where somebody had actually built like a portable bus shelter, and you could actually, it was for individuals, so that there was a job which needed 2 or 3 people to stand together. These sort of individual screens could be wheeled out, stand inside your individual screen and look at whatever the job was.
Right.
It's a bit of an engineering solution, certainly for fixed site operation. Okay, guys, just there's a wee mention on the agenda here about mental health aspects. And I know a lot of you have spent a lot of time dealing with care for your workforce. Are there any issues emerging? We seem to have gone quiet.
I would say nothing definitive on our end, but you do see signs of it. Employees griping on the ground. The fear of driving to work when you're being told that it's dangerous. There's definitely signs of it, but I must admit, so far here we've been okay on that front. I spend a lot of time talking to the employees on the ground and trying my best to build positive morale. And so far we do seem to be on top of it here, but I am keenly aware of the home workers suffering and even the people still in the workplace. It is something we factor into our risk assessments, and it is something that we discuss fairly regularly. Like, we do have 3 mental health first aiders at Regen, and it's a topic of conversation. But luckily enough, it hasn't become a main sticking point as yet.
Yeah,
One of the things, guys,
the companies I'm working with at present, sorry, Michael, companies I'm working with at present are looking at the same thing on a daily basis of just what's going on, it's very important, I think, when you look at that. Even again, I'm a bit involved with AFBI at the minute, and they're doing the COVID-19 testing, and you can see the people there actually being quite concerned about coming into their daily work every day and what's going on there. Basically because we are doing those tests. So there is big issues out there with mental health at the minute, but I think it's something that companies realise that they have to keep on top on by just talking to staff on a regular basis that they maybe wouldn't have done before, to be truthful.
I was just going to make that point there, Gordon. I think anxiety seems to be fairly out there at the moment, but one of the biggest things that I've got from speaking to different people on the ground is especially workers that have been furloughed. I think the best companies are keeping in contact with the staff that have been furloughed and keeping very much regular contact. And then you're hearing the horror stories where, maybe there's guys hasn't got spoken to since, for 6 weeks.
Yeah.
And again, it's not only because of anxiety, but it's also, they just feel a little bit let down by their employers. So I think, if it's communication, it's just, been, for me, it's been creative, and I've seen some brilliant companies been very creative in the way that they've communicated with their home workers and with their furlough staff, and that then instills a sense of pride with that worker, that they've been looked after by their company.
That's a very good point indeed, Michael.
Again, Jim, would you think that people should be looking at using the management standards support that they have on the HSE and HSE website, in as much as I would say that it's fair to say that people would have a lot of personal stressors at the moment with regards to being socially isolated and the things that shows, but also to see that the workplace doesn't add to those. So that by looking at demands, control, support, relationships, role and change, is to look at that and see if someone can look at the workplace and say, what can we do to make sure that the workplace doesn't add to the extraordinary stressors that people have at the moment? Is that fair to say?
That's a fair comment indeed.
Again, the situation for those of us who were at the awards and things like that, I also have those fact sheets with regards to people taking positive lifestyle choices. Those can be shared with people to look at and say, well, okay, what can we do at home? What can we do to meet our own responsibility? So there's all of those things as well. But I honestly feel that there is no better time at all to look at and really research the management standards. It shows us the demands during COVID-19. What measures have we got when we are limiting the amount of staff? All of those things just being re-looked at specifically on a COVID-19 sort of basis.
Yep, indeed. There's a piece of work for people to take on board. Is there any sort of practical things that people can be doing as well? I know Michael's mentioned, that just the benefit of talking to somebody.
Yeah.
Is there any other practical things that people can do?
It's probably understanding, Jim, the concerns. I think from speaking to people, you may have working couples that are concerned about if one member of the family goes back to work, the other member of families maybe needs to go back to work, and then what happens with childcare? So maybe if the employers were maybe able to offer some flexibility and just understand the needs and try and offer a bit more flexible working practices, that may help. I don't know. It's just a suggestion, but it seems childcare seems to be a topic that's popping up all the time.
Yeah, I'm finding that as well, Jim. It's a topic that's popping up all the time where people are sort of in a situation. What's going on? How am I going to know when I'm in a situation even here at home where my wife's furloughed. She's a manager in a cafe restaurant, and it's very hard. And she reads everything every day just to make sure. So it's actually getting that situation where you're actually talking to those people and making sure that they're being active in some way or doing whatever. And I know, dealing with the Plasware company, Andrew, we make a call to each other at least twice a week, and we talk to the staff at least maybe sometimes 3-4 times a week, just to make sure that those people know exactly what's going on and what's happening. And whether it be just a meeting, a telephone call, or if some of them do have their own computers and we chat just like this and have that 20-minute chat, you can just see the difference it does and how it helps people from that situation. I think that's very important.
Yep, it is indeed. It's very good if everybody's joined in this afternoon as well. It means that we're sitting here and, hey, we don't have all the problems of the world on our shoulders.
Yeah.
Can I just share something that's going on with regard if anyone is suffering from the harmful effects of stress? There is a course that's going on at the moment in stress control, so it's stresscontrol.org, and there's a Dr. Jim White who is running this course. It's an excellent course for people who may be suffering from the harmful effects of stress, and also how to deal with things, change their mindset, change how they look at things. It's an excellent source of help for people who may be struggling. So if you know anybody that's struggling, all they have to do is to go on to stress support and then .org, and then just link in with the actual webinars. They are superb, really, really good.
Okay, that's great. Stresscontrol.org.
That's it.
That's a handy tool to have as well. Is there anything else on the mental health aspects?
Just following on from what Nicola said there, there's a few that we would signpost people to within the council. We would have close to 3,000 employees. So obviously there's different ways of, you know, getting in touch and engaging with. Some of our staff are in and have been in from day one. Some have been now working from home for 6 weeks. So it's the one sort of link for the frontline staff. This information would be filtered and put on the notice boards or through one-to-one talks with management. For everyone working at home now, they all have access. We have a wee, it's called Interlink. And we, Nicola, that's really helpful because we don't have that one on it. But what we do have, which may just be a wee helpful pointer for people here, they Aware do mindfulness sessions, and they're free. Now I think they are booked up for May, but they will be offering more in June. You have to pre-book. So if you just go on to Aware, I think it's Aware NI, AWARE, Action Mental Health. It's one that we would use quite a lot in the council, and they do the wee, I think it's like Take 5, and we've had that made into posters and things. I think that was maybe in collaboration with the public, or sorry, that's the Public Health Agency, do the Take 5. Action Mental Health, if you just go on the web, www. There's info there. Another one linking into what Nicola said is the Local Government Staff Commission. If you go on the website LGSC, until the end of May, they have different webinars and sessions, and they deal with themes. So one could be nutrition, one could be working from home, exercise, things like that. And then the most generic one would be the NHS. So if you go to NHS/1U, it's called, so ONEYOU, and then it again is themes. So things like eating, drinking, smoking, exercise, things like that. We just really, in the widest context, we would offer like signposting, and we've had initiatives where members of staff do initiatives from home. So there could be, there's like a yoga instructor that she is actually a yoga instructor. So she's put sessions online to help with staff cope with stress. So there's ones that work with in the communities and doing crafts and things with kids, you know, to help people working from home, entertaining kids as well. So it's really just a signposting.
That's really useful. Anybody else?
Jim, I would also say about CIWM. CIWM's running very good webinars. If you go on the CIWM site, I know it's UK based, but some good information there, even about civic community sites, how they've opened over there, and also the fact of there's health and welfare and various things they got there. And it usually comes out on a daily basis. It might be sometimes too much reading, but it's worthwhile for anybody to have a look at that and just pick out the different slots. And what I try to do is I try to pass them on to companies here in Northern Ireland that might be of use to when they're actually looking at different things, just new ideas and various things like that.
Great. Anything else on that? The thorny topic of reopening civic community sites. I think some sites have opened here in Northern Ireland. Some are possibly planned. Probably the pressures are coming on to see what we do next. Is there a united approach amongst the councils as to what's going to be lifted and what's not going to be lifted?
I don't think there's a united approach just yet, Jim. As you know, as Jennifer's already alluded to, there's a few sites, a few councils have opened sites. We've opened ours last week, but it's a very phased, staged approach. Black bin waste only since last Monday, and by appointment only. So we found that system works very well. People have to ring up, make an appointment. We've got a 10-minute slot. We recognise the number plate on the way in. They're only allowed in. The staff aren't allowed to assist. Social distancing has been easy to maintain. and the public are generally appreciative of the service. Now there's a council meeting tonight where we may extend that service to green waste and cardboard. But as I say, it's phased and probably will be phased over the next few weeks, but it's working quite well.
And it's working.
It is.
And any thoughts of, has there been any threats or violence towards the staff, or as you say, they're members of the public are appreciative?
We found that so far, yeah, that there hasn't been any issue with aggression from the public. To be honest, the sites aren't that busy because it's black bin waste only. I think once we introduce green waste, we may, at this time of the year, we may get a few more folk in. But no, it's been very well received. And as I say, in the main, I haven't heard any reports of any problems with aggression or violence from the public at all.
Jim, from Andrew Newton Abbey side, we opened as well last week, and we've a few more materials, but we're operating the same appointment system. So we are garden waste, black bin waste, small amounts of wood and cardboard. The only real issues we're having is with regards to we're not allowing trailers in and we're not allowing vans in. So the man in the van is not too happy. And the odd trailer has turned up and have been turned away, but the appointment system has been fantastic for us, and I know Causeway Coast and Glen's finding it as well. We're debating now whether to keep it, because what we're finding is there's maybe a slot in the afternoon or whatever that the sites aren't being used because people haven't booked it in. So we're at the process again. There's a report going to party leaders to decide if that's the way to go. But we opened 2 sites last week and the rest of our sites this week, and it's been well received, definitely, and the public's positive with it as well, so we're definitely finding it. It's been, the public are actually quite thankful, but you know, as they're saying, until we start going around the DIY side and the paint side and things like that, that's when the issues are going to be, because people have that gathering up, and that's what we're still getting the questions on. Oh, but I've got a shed to get rid of, or I've got a kitchen sink to get rid of. So I think it's wee tiny bits as we're going along is the way we're going.
That's it, but it allows you to manage the traffic flow. That's the main thing.
Definitely. Like, we're only allowing 3, so we've opened up 3 bays around the site, and as Darlene had mentioned, we've got holding sites at the moment. So they go to an area, they get checked in, and then from that area then they're put on to the site. So there's 3 bays laid out and they're managed, and it means that people can social distance, and the feedback we're getting has been quite positive in regards to people actually feel safe using the site. So the staff feel safe and the people using the site are feeling safe, and they've got 5 minutes to do it. So we're going to try and keep the appointment system for the rest of this week and look at it then to see, should we be starting to try and open up and just filter if people are allowed in, and, you know, manage it at the actual site rather than the holding centre, because it's very, very resource intensive.
It is indeed. It adds to the cost, but at least what you're saying, Lindsay, is that people are actually feeling safe. So that's the main thing.
That's the feedback, yeah. Apart from the guys that should be having a trailer or a van coming in, they're not, they're still giving us hassle. But yeah, no, in general, it's working really well.
That's good to know. Anything else on that?
Has
anybody
done?
Yep.
A question there, Lindsay. Has there been any issues from an equality perspective? So the fact that our staff aren't assisting lifts, and because what we were going to do was implement a 1 person per car policy, but if you needed help loading the car, you'll need to bring that help to help you unload it, because if we're advising staff not to lift, I mean, I can see the comments, you know, coming already, you know, about that, or work, you know, verbal abuse towards our staff. And then at a further, you know, to exaggerate it, there could be an equality issue there. Someone saying not meeting Section 75 by not helping someone with a disability.
Yeah, no, we've been from the word go, we've been really strict. So we, and all our posts and everything we put out, we said that staff wouldn't be helping. We've literally, like, now we have no restrictions on the fact that if you want to bring someone to help you, that's no problem at all. But we've restricted it because there's no vans and no trailers. We've restricted it to up to 6 bags of waste. So that definitely, you know, people are probably squeezing as much as they possibly can into that, but we're not monitoring it. We've got black bags and then the green waste, so we're monitoring the green waste going in, we're monitoring the cardboard going in, but we've made restrictions on no liquids and no food waste because our black bags are going to be treated at the moment. So our site, so Regen, are checking that at the moment for us, but no, we've been so strict, Jennifer, that people won't be able to help because it's keeping up with the social distancing, and that people have respected it. We've had a few backlash of people saying, oh, sure, they didn't help us to start with anyway, never mind social distancing. But no, I think you just need to lay it out from the word go, and it means then that the guys have the policy behind them in regards to, no, I'm sorry, I'm not allowed to help you because I can't come that close, and there's no bulky items, there's nothing they should be bringing heavy anyway. So it's definitely been helpful for us. I'm happy to share. I can fire through, like, for any of the councils, like the social media stuff and things that we've put out and the messaging we've put out. There's no problem with that.
Great, thanks, Lindsay.
I'm really sorry, I have another conference call, so I'm going to have to love yous and leave yous, but thank you for letting me join you.
Okay, thanks so much. Thanks for your help.
Thanks, Jim.
All the best.
Bye. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.
Lastly, folks, any other reports on actions that you would like to share with us? Is there any more good practice going on out there? Okay, all silence. Either we've lost contact or there's nothing else to do.
I think, Jim, at the minute it's a learning curve for everybody.
Isn't it?
I know I'm learning things every day for each company that I'm dealing with, and it's really getting that in place, but it's getting to make sure that we do the thing right, and I think that's the big intention for us.
Yep, and that's just where the sharing of the information now comes in very, very helpful.
Yeah.
So just before we look at these questions, would you like to try and do this again in a few weeks' time?
Yeah, I think it would be a good idea, Jim. I think it's a good idea.
Yeah, that sounds like a yes. Yeah. So folks, you can see the questions on the screen there from Anne. Will there be a requirement to check staff temperatures on arrival at work?
That is one that we have been doing, but I've seen a webinar last week that brought up the GDPR implications of doing temperature checks. What do you guys think about that?
I have one company that is looking at it at the minute, and they are saying yes, they think it would be a good idea.
We have been doing temperature checks the whole way through, but as I say, I've just started to hear now about the GDPR side of things and how that, you know, data protection is going to play a part. The temperature check certainly seems to have worked for us, you know, and there was a couple of high temperatures, and we put them clean off work then, you know.
Yeah, you're doing personal handheld though, David, aren't you?
Recorded. That's right, yeah. No, we're not recording the data as such. No, we're not actually recording it.
I wouldn't have thought there'd be a GDPR issue if it's not being written down and recorded. If you're just testing it and moving on and getting rid of it, I wouldn't have thought there'd be a GDPR issue then.
Is that right, Pete? Yeah.
Yeah, I'm the same, David. I wouldn't think there would be an issue there, to be truthful.
Ah, brilliant. I'll tell you why. I was in, I don't know if anybody's seen it, it was a webinar for return to work, but manufacturing environments. And I think it was Irwin's Bakery is the main focus of it. But anyway, there was a law expert on that highlighted the potential GDPR implications of the temperature checks. And it just sort of got us then researching into it. But as you say, if we're not recording it then, it's not a concern. You know, I would nearly take that.
Yeah,
I like that, David. We're doing the same thing, but we are actually recording it. The reason being is to protect ourselves, to prove that we're doing it. I hadn't considered the GDPR implications, in fairness, and that's actually got me worried the other way for that reason. Yeah,
Well, it's a thorny one.
I'm not a legal expert, but from my perspective, I'd rather have it recorded that we are doing it and be able to demonstrate that we're doing it, and then accept the GDPR ramifications in due course. But I can also see a strong argument the other way, like you're saying, to say you're not recording them, you're just working by, or even maybe working by exception, so we don't record any except where it's a high reading, and then you're sending them home for health and safety reasons. But some way to show that it's actually being done on a daily basis.
David and Corin, if you don't mind, I'll try and find something out about that for you. I have a guy that I can talk to. He's very well up on it, and he's probably very keen to give me some information on it. So I'll check that for you and get you some information through.
Really appreciate that. Thank you.
Okay, Rachel, can I put that email to you if you don't mind, and maybe you would pass that on to David and Corin for me?
Yeah, that's grand. I'll put it
That's great.
back to the whole group.
Okay, Atlas World, we're also trialing a system a few weeks ago on a webinar where the thermal imaging camera could pick up elevated temperatures, I think down to the differential plus or minus 0.3 degrees. So there's again, but it was working by an exception. So if it was a high temperature, the person could be pulled aside and spoken to or sent home. So it's not a requirement, but it is an optional. It is an option which is available to us. Good companies avoid. Sorry, go ahead, Wendy.
So I just remember on the temperature probes, I had an issue there where our security man was using a temperature probe sort of through his window. So like the guys were coming in, he's using a temperature probe, and I was on site the other day, and the security man said, "Look, it's not done. It was just one of those ones you buy in the chemist, like a temperature probe where these are on the head." But to me, I just thought, I was wondering what kind of temperature probe you guys use, because he said he's been using it and it's very inconsistent. There was one guy who had a high temperature because he got out of a warm vehicle, and then we left him 5 minutes, his temperature cooled down, and I just thought, this is pointless. If I didn't know whether it was the temperature probe, so I just want to know how you guys maintain that.
Well, I know for us, we take temperatures in the morning at the start of shift and also at the end of shift. All in terms of what we record is only if there's a high temperature, trying to keep away from. I understand we should keep more of a record, but we find we try different approaches, and the handheld thermal imaging camera was the most accurate and worked the best.
Okay.
David?
Thanks, Michael.
Yeah. Sorry, just looking at a handheld thermal imaging camera. That's brilliant, Michael. Was it a pricey bit of kit, was it?
No, we have it for the biomass. I know we have to take the thermal heat of the wood. So I tell you what, I will actually get a bit of info on the one we have. It is literally the size of your phone. It's about that size, and it works brilliant. We go around to all the sites and do all the employees. I get it.
Sorry, Michael, go ahead.
I get the info because we only actually got it. We got a second one there. I'll get info on it and I will forward it on, and sure we can, if it helps anybody else.
Appreciate that, Michael.
Brilliant, Michael. I'd really appreciate that.
I know that when we were researching to try and find one for our site, first and foremost, we couldn't for love nor money find them. The only ones we could get were for a long time from China, and if you read the fine print, it was not for use on humans. So I don't know what that means. We did finally get one that seems to be consistent, seems to be working okay. But it was a long search for us to find that. And I think what
Guys,
Michael
if you
just
want,
said about the thermal imaging.
we're installing quite a few of the thermal imaging cameras for our clients across the hospitals, care homes and trusts, etc. And we've done a few of the handheld ones. If you want, I can get some information and get that over to you as well if you want.
Yeah, thanks. Do well.
Yeah, if you could send it to myself as well, that would be great.
Not a problem.
Good man, Pete, getting the sales technique in there.
Can you, Michael? Don't miss a trick.
It is good kit for us. I was happy. I was lucky to be able to sit in on the webinar and so on. So it is good kit. Should companies avoid using fingerprint time machines and revert to a possible clock card system? Possibly, just disinfect the machine after use.
What way do people? What way are you working on at the moment? I know for ourselves we have fingerprint and face recognition.
Yeah.
So we have put everybody onto the face, but also keeping sanitizer right at the machine because sometimes the face doesn't work.
Yeah.
But what ways a lot of you guys doing it at the moment?
We're doing the same. We've went to the face scanning, Michael, same as yourselves.
Yep, same.
Yeah, we're the same, but we've got some people who don't want to do the face recognition because, I don't know, I think we're going to keep their ID or something, I'm not really sure. But we just kept the hand sanitizer beside it, so.
I know where your clogging machine is, Wendy. It's in a bad place.
Just to let you know, there's been an advert there on the Sky News that there's been a new outbreak of COVID-19 in Wuhan, China.
Yeah, I think that's been out a couple of days now, to be truthful.
It's just come through there on Sky News.
Yeah. I think it's been out there. I've looked at, as you know, I'm sort of around the world looking at different places, and I've checked that. So it has been said that there is new cases. I think there was something like 5 reported day before last.
Yeah.
Here there's more cases today. So basically, in the day, it's a bit of a worrying time. But let's see what happens there.
Yeah.
Okay. Last question, a couple of questions. Should risk assessment be carried out company-wide overall or one for each department?
Departmental, really. Doesn't it have to be departmental? You know, with different measures in place for different departments.
Yeah.
Then it has to be.
Yeah, I think so, Jim. I think that's the way it should be.
Yeah, I was going for the departmental option as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, us too.
Yeah.
Okay, happy enough. And then the last one, well, work has to be carried out within a 2-meter distance. Will it be necessary for staff to wear provided masks and other PPE, or will this be down to individual choice? Should companies enforce this?
We currently have it that, I mean, there's required PPE for them to be wearing, such as gloves in the yard anyway. Yep. They must wear gloves. But things like masks, they are available. And if they wish to use them, they're freely supplied. Some of the guys are using them, some of them are not, but we're not enforcing the need for them to wear them as yet.
Yep. The only sort of legal thing is if people are being provided with company provided PPE, then the obligation is on the workforce to wear it. I think from memory, I think I'm right on that one.
Are you saying then that if we provide sanitizer, they're obliged to use it every time?
Yep.
Yes.
Every time, because it comes down to the individuals. I mean, obviously, if they're, let me get my words clear. If it's available, you're saying they must use it.
Yes.
Yep.
Just another wee point on the hand sanitizer worth thinking about is that the alcohol-based hand sanitizers can cause dermatitis. And people are using these things flat out at the minute.
Yeah.
So it might be worth having barrier creams, after work creams or something like that available as well.
Yeah, just on that, there's actually a moisturising barrier or moisturiser hand sanitizer you can get, which might be a better alternative to look for that. I've definitely got it and it's definitely much better. I find it very useful. So look for the moisturising hand sanitizer if you can buy that.
Is that have emollient in it?
I don't know. It looks the same, but it obviously it doesn't dry the hands. There must be some sort of like aloe vera in it or something.
We were using alcoholic sanitizer, but we're actually onto an alcohol-free.
Yes.
And it's the staff actually prefer it. we had a couple of drivers. We have gloves and sanitizer and different things in every vehicle, and the drivers refused to use the sanitizer that was alcohol based. And we tried a different, actually worked out a cheaper product, but it matched the same standards, and they prefer the alcohol free far better. And it was actually affecting a lot of the guys because they're wearing gloves. Just, you don't know what the nature of the work is, so they're always wearing gloves. They found that the alcohol sanitizer was affecting them because of the way their hands were sweating. And after all, the alcohol was stripping all the oils out of the hands.
Yeah.
So the alcohol free works a lot better for them.
Excuse me, I'm going to have to leave. I have another meeting to go to. Please excuse me.
Thanks for coming.
Okay, thank you.
Take
Bye.
care.
Bye.
Bye.
Folks, we're nearly finished. That was the last question. And I think we agreed there that we would have a chat in 2 or 3 weeks' time. Are there any final questions?
I just wanted to remind you that face coverings are not PPE. So if you're giving them as face coverings, and then it's not under the PPE regulations. So a face
right,
covering
yes,
is not personal protective. Just to remember that. So if you're giving it for that reason, and it's a face covering, and it's something that you are giving them as a voluntary thing to wear, if they want reassurance, then then it wouldn't come under the same thing. You must wear it.
It's also not CE marked.
But can I also clarify that you could not use PPE for face coverings? Is that right? Just I've been having this debate with a few different people, and that PPE is PPE regardless of what we use it for. So if I was saying using an FFP2 mask, but I was going to use it for a face covering, it still falls under the legislation because it is PPE. Isn't that correct?
Yeah.
I think it's important if you've defined it as something that you've actually said in your risk assessment that you need a respirator, then it's actually respiratory protective equipment, and if it's CE marked, then it's also it comes under the PPE regulations. But really, the respirators, and if you've said it, you need a respirator, then yeah, they must wear it. But if they want to use that and they've bought it, or they're using them as a face covering, well, then I think it's different then, because you're using it as if that's what they have bought themselves, then they want to use it as a face covering. I mean, it's personally my opinion with it. If you've written it in that need a respirator, then yes, you have to provide them, and they have to be free, and you have to maintain them and store them. But if it's actually something they've bought themselves, they want to work their own reassurance, and it happens to be a respirator, again, then it's their own, they've brought themselves as for a face covering. So the difference is what you've got in a risk assessment and what's written in there. Have you got written it in that you need it, then it's PPE, and then you enforce that. Whereas if it's just a face covering, they buy it themselves, they make it themselves, whatever type it is, then again, you could have a relaxed date on that, in my opinion.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, happy. Is everybody content?
Jim, could I say something on sanitizer?
Yes, Pete. Raymond, go ahead.
Hi guys, how are we doing? To my understanding, I was at a cleansing conference a while back, and sanitizer has to be alcohol based. The gel itself breaks down the membrane around the COVID, and the alcohol kills the bug. So an alcohol free, I'll have to go back and find out about it and such like, but I would imagine alcohol free sanitizer is a waste of time. Secondly, the guy who was doing a presentation for us was saying that alcohol sanitizer evaporates very, very quickly. So your hands become dirty 20 to 30 times quicker than if you're washing with soap and water, because the greasiness of the soap stays on your hands.
Wow.
And as well as that, what he was actually saying was it's soap and hot water, not soap and cold water. Yes. The soap breaks down the gel membrane around the COVID, and the hot water kills it. The only two things that we can actually put our finger on at this moment in time to kill COVID is steam, which is really high temperature or very hot water, and UV light. UV light can be used, but it has to be used on a static basis. Your hands have to remain under for 5 seconds. You can use it as a sort of an ionizer as well. You can push the air through UV light, and use. But these units are very, very expensive. They're £2,000 or £3,000. But I'll need to go back and find out, Jim, and I will happily do it from at the end of this meeting. Alcohol-free sanitizer, I don't think it will be effective. It's because the alcohol actually kills the bug.
Can you let me know what you get back from that, if you don't mind?
I will, absolutely delighted, Michael. No problem at all.
Raymond, I have the specs of what we use. If you want, Raymond, I'll fire them over to you as well.
Be delighted, Michael. And I say I've got a BCC meeting coming up in a couple of days' time. Sort of stuff. It's the British Cleaning Council, and we have everything from hospital cleaners, office cleaners, and we have actually people who've been in the Nightingale hospitals training people to clean surfaces and various things. So that's where that information sort of is coming from. But it's what I understand. So I'll very happily come back to you and confirm it.
Brilliant.
Soap and hot water is what we recommend.
Yep.
Oh, Pete Gibson, are you still there?
I am indeed, Jim.
Peter, thank you so much for all your help.
Not a problem, sir. Glad to assist.
So,
Yeah, thanks very much, Peter.
No worries, guys.
And I tell you what, before we all go, will you all smile for a screenshot so we can have a picture? Lovely. Thanks for smiling, Pete.
And on that note, folks, take care.
All the best.
Thanks, guys.
Take
We'll
care,
be in touch.
everybody.
Take care.
Thanks.
Thanks, Jim.
Bye.
Bye-bye.